He never leaves Perbadanan, is it?
So I've been online with them in the morning or WhatsApp. So
Okay.
yeah, they are looking forward to listen to all of us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll start in 2 minutes time. We wait for the people to come in. Tan Sri, you're getting well.
Yeah, I'm good.
Congratulations, congratulations for your new appointment.
What's that?
The high-speed train.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a big task ahead, man. It's on.
Good to listen. Good to hear.
It's good. It's good for the country. Okay, we'll open up all the hinterland for economic development.
InsyaAllah.
Yeah, well, I look forward for that.
Give to locals, Tan Sri, local consultant from architects, planners, engineers, semua.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Except for those things that we are not capable of doing.
Yeah. We collaboration, we joint venture collaboration.
There are specialized items,
Yeah.
Not easy to run a high-speed rail.
Macam mana, Cik Syafiq?
I think we can go live now.
We can go live,
Alright.
In 30 seconds, I hope.
Okay.
We are also live on FB.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get myself a drink.
Yeah. Good idea. It's going to be a long history talk. Down memory lane. Okay. I think once Tan Sri come back, we straight away begin. Okay. Could I ask for all of you all to mute your speaker for a moment? Tan Sri, Datuk Sri, yeah. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and a very good afternoon to all, and salam merdeka to all of us in Malaysia and to all our foreign listeners. Welcome to this webinar. We are also live on Zoom as well as FB Live. This special event would not have been successful if not for the persistence of Dr. Azmizam of Urbanis, the Deputy CEO of Urbanis Malaysia. We managed to do this all up in 36 hours. So thank you very much, Dr. Azmizam and the team from Urbanis, as well as Puan Noniza, the CEO. So a bit of Urbanis Malaysia. Urbanis Malaysia is a center of excellence for sustainable cities and community well-being that was established on 26 June 2016 as a company limited by guarantee under the Malaysian Ministry of Housing and Local Government. So this is one of the activities. Later they will tell some more towards the end of the program. So welcome to Merdeka special webinar, 25th anniversary of Putrajaya, Building on the Legacy. It's held today, 31st August, very auspicious day, our national day of the 63rd anniversary. So as a young capital, Putrajaya may not have the character and soul of the great cities of the world, but it is well on its way there with innovative architecture, community-centric town planning, and long-term ambitions, and Putrajaya's vision to move forward as a sustainable Putrajaya. So by 2025, it is deemed that it will be moving towards a sustainability program and is among the pioneers of Malaysian smart cities. This webinar is organized by Urbanist Malaysia and provides a brief overview of the history and development of Malaysian urbanism that set the stage for the creation of Putrajaya, and critically examines its claim of being green. Particularly attention is paid to how a national identity has been constructed through the design of the city. So we would like to thank all these learned, distinguished participants towards this webinar. So this is the 25th anniversary of Putrajaya. It was actually on the 29th August 2020, some 25 years ago, in the same day in 1995, the Mercu Tanda, or the obelisk in Putrajaya, was actually built, where that is actually the beginning of the construction for Putrajaya. And to all these well-known and icons here, who has one way or the other started the first strokes of Putrajaya, to share their precious times with us, to share their thoughts on this webinar. We are being joined by Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Sri Jabasinggam Isaac John. Currently, he is the CEO of Northern Corridor Implementation Authority, NCIA. Also, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Sri Architect Haji Esa Haji Muhammad, founder and executive chairman of Architect Jururancangan Malaysia Sdn Bhd, one of the 6 consultants that was involved in Putrajaya. Town Planner Nur Rizal Hashim, CEO of Urbanist Malaysia. Mr. Kun Lim, all the way from Seattle, the CEO, design principal of Kun Lim Studio Limited, LLC, Seattle, USA, and chairman of Seattle International Architecture Forum. Mr. Joe Siddiq, the director of Georgetown Festival 2010-2017 and chairman of Federation of Asian Cultural Promotion, FACP. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again. So this session will be moderated by myself. I'm architect Mustafa Kamal from the Tuan Architect Malaysia, Malaysian Institute of Architects. So learned this and distinguished speakers and presenters. So before we begin, I think it's probably good that during this pandemic, by offering our prayers in many of our beliefs to the frontliners who have stood steadfast in the fight against COVID-19, as well as those who have left us as a result of the COVID-19. Al-Fatiha. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, learned participants. So to proceed this session, I would like to share with you some slides as a guide to our dialogue session. This is just a dialogue because it's not going to be like listening like another webinar. It's supposed to be a sharing session of what happened 25 years ago. I call it walking down the memory lane. And probably we look at the next 25 years of Putrajaya. So, so these slides are a combination of Mr. Kulim and myself on Putrajaya, and I will then end the presentation with a collection of a few of very important slides of his freehand sketches that first started, or rather the strokes that started the Putrajaya. So if you don't mind, I will share the slides now. Okay, Putrajaya is actually part of an ambitious plan in 1990s by the Malaysian government, then Prime Minister Tun Mahathir, to create this multimedia super corridor, which is coming in from Kuala Lumpur, where KLCC is the heart, Putrajaya and KLIA. So this is the beginning of the first structure plan of Putrajaya that was done in 1993, which covers about 14,780 hectares of thing, but Putrajaya sits on almost 5,000 hectares. So this was what Putrajaya used to be, and the boundary that marked in red is the boundaries of Putrajaya. If in Malaysia, those from Malaysia, they will know that the northern boundary is where the South Klang Valley Expressway, and the southern is the east new highway, which is coming in from Bangi all the way to KLIA. So it was actually a rubber and palm oil estate called Perang Besar. So it was actually tasked by the EPU, headed then by Dato' Sri Jayaprakash Isaac, to actually work through with the Prime Minister's Department, and for a group of 6 consultants called Kumpulan Perunding Kota Bestari, that made up of these firms, Arkitek Jururancang Malaysia, BEP Architects Sdn Bhd, Hijaz Kasturi, Perunding Alam Bena, Min Konsult, and Reka Rancang Sdn Bhd. So the brief is very clear from the government, is to draw up a Malaysian-based and Islamic-inspired heritage city that would be relevant today and tomorrow. And it is supposed to be centered around the trinity relationship between human and the creator, human and his environment, human and his fellow human being. So these were the proposals that was given to the government. There were 5, and the one that was done by BEP Architects, where Kun Ling used to work there, was chosen to be beginning the strokes, what was to be the Putrajaya as it is now. So this is actually the doctrine that was followed, and the late Dato' Zainuddin was instrumental to actually, through his town and country planning department, then now it's called Plan Malaysia, to implement, and through the intense work with Dato' Sri Isaac at that time, with the Perbadanan Putrajaya, Putrajaya Corporation, and Putrajaya Holdings, was supposed to come out with Putrajaya what it is now. This is actually the timeline of the Putrajaya from its first inception in 1993 all the way down now to 2020. So it all started with the cabinet being the decision, and the first office was completed in 1999, where the first 300 staff of the PM's office shifted in June. The PM began his work on the 21st of June 1999, and the first cabinet meeting was the day after, on the 22nd. And this is the 3 phases that were to have done, and is already completed. I think last year was the last parcels for the government offices in phase 3 and there was, if I'm not mistaken, parcel F. So this is in simplified. There are about 20 precincts, and it's 25 kilometers from Kuala Lumpur, and it's 5 kilometers north of Cyberjaya. And this is actually where the population now, as it stands, they are now planned to be 350,000, but currently they have got, I think, about close to 70,000 working, and 90,500 people staying there. So it's the view as it is now, and I think on normal Merdeka Day, this is where the parade would be. And one of the features of Putrajaya is the Putrajaya Lake, where the wetlands, and this is actually where the wetlands will clean up the water before it gets to the lake from Sungai Chuau. So this is how it looks, the nice clear blue water. And this is the boulevard at night, and boulevard during the day, and this during one of the Merdeka years celebration. I think will be missed, this sort of celebrations where many people throng to this boulevard. So this is the plan for Putrajaya in by their plan of sustainability in 2025. So the going for green, vibrant, distinctive, as well as connected. And this is the grand plan to actually be implemented, coming on from what was planned in 1995 to actually move on after this to be that sustainable city. So this is the view, current view. This is the Dataran, where the oval, and also the PM's office, where the green dome, and Putra Mosque. Another view. This is from the Ministry of Finance. This is during the Merdeka Parade. The lake. And I end with some of these sketches by Kun Lim, these freehand sketches. I was telling him that this might be has to be put in our museum to actually be put in posterity for people to actually understand how Putrajaya came about. The first few watercolor sketches, perspective view of Putrajaya. And this is also another how the idea will come. Later, we'll talk to him and also with Tan Sri Esa, Dato' Sri Isaac, Puan Nurliza, and we get comments from Cik Zul Siddiq as well. So this is the model that was built. And at that time also, they were thinking about green transportation where the monorail is planned at that time to cover almost all the precincts that was marked in red. So that's the slide sharing. So I will stop sharing. And I think I would like to now open for the first few questions that will go. I think the format we'll do is this way. I will ask first general questions, then I'll go specific to a person because some of these issues are only related to a person or a group of people, because this is actually to help people to understand, you know, in 25 years what has happened and what is envisaged during that time. And I think to beginning, I would like to ask Dato' Sri Isaac, no, and later to Tan Sri Esa and also Kun Lim and Puan Nurliza. What were your first thoughts that crossed your mind when the opportunity was given to design and to build a new nation's federal administrative center up from a green field? Dato' Sri.
That's a very interesting question. Thank you so much. You know, I think what is important is, you know, as a planner, not many people have a chance to start a city from a green field. So, you know, that itself is a privilege. So my first perception was it was a privilege. It was a challenge, but it is an opportunity, you know, to showcase the best that you know of. You know, we have looked at Brasilia, we have looked at Ottawa, we look at Canberra, you know, then we want to see what is the best we can do for Malaysia. So to me, I see it as an opportunity, a challenge to build a sustainable Malaysian city built by local talents, to showcase our local talents. And, you know, at the same time, it gives us an opportunity to build in the new classical, traditional essence of cities into a modern city. You know, there's so much we can learn from the village, the kampung, the lifestyle, the culture. And some of these values actually can be built into the city. So it gives us a, you know, a tremendous opportunity to inculcate those values into a city that we are totally building. You know, and the other point I want to make is it's a good opportunity for city planners, urban designers, architects, engineers to work as a team and to build a city that we all can be proud of.
Thank you very much, Dato' Sri. Now, to you, Tan Sri Esa, you were one of few one of the 6 consultants that I named just now to actually be part of this whole endeavor towards the achieving of this Putrajaya. You know, what crossed in your mind? I think that's very important. I think the first few hours after it was called by the Prime Minister or the KSN, what actually was playing in your mind?
Okay, thank you, Mus. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon, good day to everybody. The whole idea of the new city started way back in early 80s. And at first, a site was identified in Jandabai up in the mountains, right? But that one sort of died off for a while. And then in 1992, the government decided that the site in Perang Besar, which is actually in Sepang, right, was identified. That was just after the KLIA was started, the study of KLIA and the construction started. And then the cabinet to the PM's office decided that let's have a competition. They invited 5 firms which you have mentioned earlier, to come up with a competition, and then with 5 different proposals. That was to be developed and designed within a month. And we thought it was quite crazy, you know, to deploy all those time and money. And we suggested to then, I think, the PMO's office to Samsudin Hitam, I think you can recall, who was the KP at that time, that we form a consortium. We will come up with 5 proposals. And we came up with 5 proposals within a month and presented to Cabinet. And it was chosen. I think the one done by BEP was chosen. You showed the slide just now. And then we decided, the whole idea is to make sure that everybody from the 5 firms can chip in to develop and then provide their expertise to meet what the government's aspiration would be. It was actually a plan that was designed to be different. We used the Garden City concept and also to embody some of the futuristic requirements in preparation for the country to be a very advanced nation in Vision 2020. That's what I can recall. There was actually an order that was given to all of us. So, and hence this really unique design. We talk about smart city, we talk about, you mentioned earlier about the relationship between man and environment, man and the creator. This is basically a concept of what a smart city would be. And that's how it all came about. And one thing I can recall also, that we wanted it to be a place which is user-friendly and transportation-friendly, TOD, neighborhood concept with central, what we call is neighborhood facilities and connectivity. And very important is to have a boulevard, because we have the habit of having parades, you know, in Merdeka like today. So that was why the boulevard concept was also developed. And I recall also that we suggested to use trams, which unfortunately it is not being done. And I still do not know why. Until today, we have not resolved that. And I think the line for what they call the people movers are being developed in terms of monorail, which I think is totally unfriendly, not user-friendly. It is better nowadays with new technologies. You don't have to have cables to have your trams, you know, you can have it.
Yeah, I think that one we go to the next one, Tan Sri.
That was all it was all about before. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'd like to go to Kun Lim. Kun Lim, so can you describe this sketch? I remember reading last night your write-ups that were planned for the 25th anniversary book of Putrajaya. So can you explain a little bit?
My first thoughts that crossed my mind when I was asked to participate in this project was more on some kind of visualization. Because why? I think on December 20th, 1993, I still remember about 4 p.m. 2 weeks after I started working with BEP Architect, one of the director, Mr. Ho Wai Ping, called me to his office, say, Kun Lim, we've been invited to submit a proposal for some kind of government city. He did not know exactly what it was. And then he said, you have a flexibility to think of anything, but the bad news is you have 2 weeks to come out with a proposal. So the thing comes across in my mind immediately. I begin to imagine what was a government city. And then I ask myself, why government want to move the facilities from KL to Putrajaya or Pulang Basar to what there was a name during that time. So it must be a certain reason, because in KL, it was very spread out, very congested, and very chaotic. So my first thought was, the so-called government city in Putrajaya, it must have to be, especially for the government offices, government agencies and all the institutions must be able to house in a very organized and disciplined manner. It must be very efficient, organized. It has to be, in my mind, it has to be almost like the National Mall in Washington, D.C. to be organized. Had to be like in compact and in a cluster. And then secondly, I also think about this is going to be a city where hundreds of thousands of residents going to call home. So it has to be a living city. It has to be a green city with beautiful parks, gardens, and so on. And then I lived in Princeton, New Jersey for 5 years. Princeton is a garden city. It is to me. The city is a garden. So when you live in the garden city, you do not have to go to the garden anymore. So in my imagination, Putrajaya has to be a garden city. And then in terms of the so-called built environment, buildings and so on should be, or I should put it the other way around, the environment and the landscape should be more prominent than the buildings, than most of the buildings, with the exception of the Prime Minister's office, maybe the High Court complex and the mosque. That's what I have in mind. So this is some kind of so-called visual image I had in my mind when Mr. Ho Wai Ping gave me the 2 weeks assignment. And then on the same night, I went back to the office, at the BP office at about 10 p.m. And I took up the topography map since we did not have time to go to visit the site, to do all the site analysis. I began to look for certain clues or inspirations. And then I saw 2 high points because in my mind, a capital city needs to have certain formality, needs to have certain axis. So in my mind, I immediately take a red color pen and draw an axis, the axis, which will serve as a spine to organize all the government activities, government offices, and so on. And at the same time, this is going to be a living city. You don't want to work in the government in a very formal and very official, very formal environment. And then you go back to your house, it is still very formal. So I believe the living environment or the neighborhood have to be a bit more organic. Okay. So how to make it more organic?
Okay.
I began to look for inspiration from the site. Since I had no chance to go to visit the real site, and I look at the topography map, I saw Sungai Chua, Sungai Langat, and I began to pick up a contour point at about 22 meters. And I happened to have a blue colored pencil with me. Put some blue colored pencil and it became the waterway and it became the immediate concept. Okay. So there was how the concept come out. And then initially, because we are short of time, we did not have time to do like a lot of analysis and so on. So instead of asking an architect to help me, I asked my boss to assign a perspective artist to help me to draw some beautiful images and so on. And that's how we produce a series of drawings.
Okay.
As you can see, yeah, that's how I would say it. As you can see from this perspective.
Yeah, we'll get back to you shortly. Wan Nurliza, when you were at that time asked to work on this, what was your thoughts?
I was very much younger then. So of course I was super excited because, you know, like Datuk Sri Isaac say, you know, you don't get to build a city from scratch at that time, you know, and a very important city. It's the capital city. And the thought that at that time was whether or not it's going to be a new capital city or administrative city. So it was really exciting. And at that time I was with Tan Sri and we were just also at the same time doing the airport So an idea of another huge city in between Kuala Lumpur and the airport, you know, it was just amazing. And I don't get to do the exciting things that Kun Lim, Tan Sri, Datuk Sri Isaac does, you know, because I was very young, you know, I was only at that time, you know, a planner, a junior planner that I've joined Tan Sri, and but I get to do all the cleaning up, you know, looking at land, looking at all the administrative thing, some of the social impacts that might be happening. So I thought that, wow, I never thought we are going to build the city, because the issues then were quite a lot to move this, you know, build the city and move all the offices from Kuala Lumpur to Putrajaya. But yeah, it was very exciting for me. And I think that it was a time when we learned so much, you know. There were no textbook, not many textbook to teach us what to do. We learned from each other.
Yes.
We learned from our masters, you know, Tan Sri at that time, Datuk Sri Isaac, you know, we were very scared of them. BEP bosses, Sijas, the late Nick Razi, Fakrul Razi, Datuk, the late Datuk Zainuddin, you know. So comparatively, I'm just in the background helping them, but it was the most exciting part of my life. And I'm really, really happy that I was part of a important journey actually for Malaysia.
Thank you, Puan Rosa. Cik Jo, from your side, looking out from outside towards this Putrajaya, when you know about the news to have Putrajaya to be designed and built, what was your thoughts, Cik Jo?
No, it's very interesting to hear the origins of Putrajaya. My experience, I was asked to do a festival there. And when I went and have a look, I thought, wow, beautifully lined out. But I'd like to hear what all three of you have to say about what is it now in your eyes. Is the city what you envision it to be 25 years down the road? Has it turned out to be what you've laid out to be? That's what I would love to hear.
Okay. We get to that point. So I think to get to the nice points now, I think I would like to ask back to Datuk Sri Isaac. You know what you is actually your life. Since 92, 93 until you left Badan Putrajaya. At the peak of Putrajaya is actually almost in their second phase. So what were the, how shall I say, there's shortfall, if I may ask. I think we have, in order for us to move forward, we need to talk about to understand where the shortfall or where we gain and the expectations of Putrajaya as what you drew it and what it is now, Datuk Sri.
Okay, thank you for that question. I think Putrajaya has got the best in terms of urban design, the best in terms of landscape planning, the best in terms of infrastructure, the state-of-the-art infrastructure, nicely aligned boulevard. But if I want to re-look at this, and if I had a chance to do it again, what I would focus on is, cities need to have a soul. Putrajaya is very clinical.
Okay.
So, it has got very nicely aligned landscape roads, boulevards.
Coming from the creator itself. Okay.
Yeah, beautiful architecture. I think the best of, what you will find in cities is all there. But I think what it needs is the soul. One of the things that, we could have done better is to provide for the informal sector to be also part of these new cities. It could have been done in a modern way, but, somehow we were so clinical at the time. Yep. We were so carried away with the urban design guidelines. Every parcel of land has got very clear urban design guidelines. So in terms of architecture, building design, I think it's excellent. But it was the soul to the city is what, we could have focused on and worked on right from the beginning, so that we will have the vibrancy of a city. When Tun Mahathir envisioned the city, he had Champs-Élysées in mind. Paris, you know, a vibrant boulevard with, you know, lively activities. But somehow, you know, that does not happen until today. And maybe that is what I think we should be looking at as we move into the next phase.
Okay. Going to you, Kun Lim, because I think that's actually a follow-on question from this one, because it relates back to the proposal that you did that caught the eye of the Prime Minister at that time. You know, you were saying that Tun was looking at it intently at the lake, and then there was a debate about the how shall I say, the wetlands. So, did you build inside there when you know that it's going to be a government city, that sort of vibrancy that Dato' Sri Isaac was in, or if there is, where is it in your plan that shows the vibrancy? That one we need to test out.
I think in our initial design, the vibrancy should happen throughout the entire city. Example, the city has 20 precincts, 5 government code precincts, and 25 neighborhood precincts. In every neighborhood precinct should be like, when you go back to your neighborhood, you should have your urban village, which should all commercial activities, which is what we are doing now. And then even amongst the government precinct, in my initially, we think the government precinct, the buildings should be very low profile, with the exception of 50 government buildings. And most of the government buildings should be linked together by verandas. You can walk from one corner to another, and so on. And then initially, we also thought maybe like during the initial stage, we thought maybe in front of the Prime Minister office, you can have a wage market, something like that, and so on. And then when we got to stage 2, during the so-called consortium project, Kumpulan Perunding Kota Bestari stage, we further developed the idea a bit further. From precinct, I think 2 or 3 to 4, we have most of the government buildings, almost like shop houses, all linked together, all connect together. At the ground floor with veranda, people can walk from, because Malaysia is very hot, so people can walk from one building to another. At the ground floor, we should have like mama store, coffee shop, and so on. And the ministries, the offices can be above. That's what we have in mind. So you can have a 24-hour city. This is what we have in mind initially. But I don't think it's too late. We still can do something, because why? The framework, the so-called city hall management system, the infrastructure is already done. And then I think it is in the very good shape and so on. We still can do a lot of things.
Okay.
Like what Isaac said, sometimes when the city is too well planned, it can be a bit rigid and boring. So we must have certain flexibility in design. And then, for example, if you look at the 4.2 kilometer long boulevard, it is like the spine for the entire core islands. I think we can do something. We can do something to it. We can add certain urban fabrics to the existing structure. I mean, the boulevard. We can add some mama store, artist corners, something like movable. I'm sure you can do it. We can rethink certain way to make it more lively.
So maybe you're saying something to do with art galleries or
art gallery, movable kiosks, mama store, because it's very wide. Maybe something movable. Whenever you have a national celebration, we can move away. You can even have, like, example, recently I read an article about this, the so-called public toilet in Tokyo.
Yes.
Designed by certain famous architect with transparent toilet.
Yeah.
When you switch off and so on, you can have all kinds of interesting things along the boulevard. So okay. I would say that Putrajaya, the design, although design is still intact, we just have to slowly fine-tune it. Yeah, slowly fine-tune it.
Now I'd like to go back to Tan Sri Esa. Tan Sri, as you put to the task, a person appointed by Prime Minister during that time to steer the Kumpulan Perunding Kota Bestari Sdn Bhd as the CEO, So what was your major challenge, the most major challenge that you need to actually do in order to get this Putrajaya on the ground and to whatever the visions that was set out by the Prime Minister? Tan Sri? Tan Sri Issa?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a big challenge, to do what is required, because to be fair, I think the government has given us quite a free hand to propose what we think was good, and we actually worked very well together with because we joined our effort together with the Department of Town Country Planning at that time. I think Datuk Sri Isaac was also in charge at that time, if you can recall. And we worked quite closely to determine exactly what are the planning rules and laws prevailing at that time. So there was not a big deal to us to come up with the final plan. And in actual fact, when we finished the plan, which was approved by the government, the structure plan came later.
Oh.
Yeah, because it has to be done in such a way that to follow the structure plan system. But I would just like to touch on what is happening at the moment, the point that was raised by Joe Sidik.
Yep.
I think the way it is being developed at the moment, each parcel seems to be quite isolated and they're not connected to each other. We talk about Champs-Élysées, a classic boulevard where there's a lot of vibrancy, but there's a lot of activities at the ground level. Here at the ground level, you don't have any activities except a lobby for the offices, and there's no connectivity between buildings. And we actually are very, very concerned about it when we were in KL, because KL is the same thing. There's no connectivity at the ground level. So people could not walk from one building to another. They're quite far. At that time, when it first started, transportation was a problem, right? Public transportation is still I think it's still a problem now. You got to have cars to move from one building to another. So I think you will look, that's this image that you just shown us, it is a festive time, during Merdeka parade. But you look at the buildings, they're just, they're not connected to any of this. So I think this is a big issue. So we might want to consider to convert all those ground floors or make extensions to give some activities, whether it is going to be what they call shopping, or going to be a gallery, or activities for the young. I think this has to be considered.
A continuum like our 5-foot walkway, that's it, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly, we don't have a 5-foot walkway here. We have a 5-foot walkway within the building, but it's not connected to the next building. So this is I think is, in terms of zoning, it might be right, but in terms of space design, is wrong to me, right?
For Noliza, okay.
Let me finish.
Okay, sorry.
In actual fact, in the zoning, the original zoning, all this area are also supposed to be interspersed with residential, right? So have apartments at the back so that, people can move from the apartments into the building, don't then have to drive. I think that was the plan. So it is high time we have to revisit the master plan, right? This is, you can see here, there's a building. If you look at another zoning plan, right, that was done, I think, it's not in your slide, but I think I have a slide. You can see there are interspersed of commercial and residential even within the government precinct. So if you don't have vibrancy, it's very difficult to encourage private sector to come in to invest, right? So this is something that has to be taken into account very seriously. You have an attempt to put a small, what we call commercial at the bottom of the plaza next to the mosque, right?
Yes.
But it's not successful. right? Because it's hidden away. You can't see it. Yeah? So people like to see things happening.
Right. So as the I think one of the thing that we have to consider that in any city there is always these 4 V's to consider. There's the value part, the vibrancy part, the vitality part, and also the variety. So Noliza, when you were working with Tan Sri on this, especially you're looking at the land, all those sort of things, what were your thoughts to actually put this so that it was done and how it could happen to be that the plan was done at that time?
I think at that time when we were looking at zonings and all that, I mean, Datuk Sri Isaac would have more say on that. But, there were a lot of other issues that we need to deal with. Ownership is also one,
Okay.
The idea of not having too much commercial was also an issue, because initially we were planning it together with Cyberjaya, and then after that, it was carved out, and somehow or other that was supposed to be the where most of the commercial development is going to be, and Putrajaya was where a lot of the administrative and government dwellings were. So I think along the way, trying to create even commercial was through land which belongs through Perbadanan, and where Perbadanan could actually later on commercialize it. Whereas I think there were many more reasons as to why we didn't design the city like normal townships. I think one of the reasons was also how could we actually keep the prices of the property there intact, not create a property play kind of a development. So, there were a lot of thoughts, I think, but I was also very fortunate because in 2015, we actually came back to look at the master plan. We did the structure plan, the current structure plan, which is from 2017 to 2025. So when we revisited the structure plan, actually the structure plan went through a lot of formal process, like Tan Sri said, we actually created the structure plan after the master plan was done. Then there was a review on that master plan also. But the density has always been low. We started with 125,000, then it was amended to 250. It's only the last plan that you showed in one of the slides that had the 350,000 that actually came from the most recent structure plan, because we think that in order for the place to be more vibrant, it needs to be populated in that sense, And this is why, in fact, all these diagrams that you're showing in the last few slides, this is actually from the current structure plan. And at that time, when we did a lot of serious engagement, as you know, the previous plans were done, there were very little engagement done with community.
Yes.
All communities in Kuala Lumpur even, Of course, we don't have community in Putrajaya, but we didn't even have any around with communities around it. But this time around, when we did this, we had serious and numbers of engagement with current people, with government agencies that are there as residents or officers, and even visitors that were coming. And we were very shocked with the numbers. For example, we had a lot of tourists, but nobody spent a single dollar in Putrajaya. We have few hundred buses a day, but no single people spend money there. People came down on the bus, take pictures, and they eat somewhere else. And there were mixed views as to, even though everyone says they want it to be more vibrant, there are a lot of views that didn't want it to be that vibrant from the people that were actually living here. So we were quite mixed, because this is based on engagement, yeah.
Yes.
So we wanted to change, like for example, to create more mixed-use zoning in the core area. Some of the government agencies themselves were not keen on that, because reminding us that it's a government agency, government administrative center. In the end, the current structure plan allowed for complementary uses which are not too drastic. For example, tourism, which is something that we should utilize all the assets that we've created, the greenery, the beautiful buildings and architecture. And then we wanted it to remain a center of excellence for governance, you know, and administration.
Yes.
And education. So these are three things that were added to the plan to add on to complement the government administrative function, so that it's not like too drastic. But like what Datuk Sri Isaac was saying, you know, I actually agree, you know, this will be some of the finer things if we bring into Putrajaya. Probably it will bring a lot more vibrancy.
Yeah.
But again, you know, the readiness of the people, even for us to bring it up to 350,000 was very challenging. Not many people agree to the idea, but actually you are seeing some commercial development already on the boulevard. Not as much as what we wish it to be, you know, but there have been changes.
Yep.
And there have been some small conversion happening.
Yep.
And yeah, you know, maybe in the next few more years, we will see more action. And I saw in the Q&A, people are commenting
Yep.
on the size of the roads.
Yes.
Because at that time when it was designed, you know, it was a garden city. And as you know, garden city, if you look at Redburn City, Letchworth cities, a lot of the garden cities, in fact, during the 100-year garden cities, the garden city people came to Putrajaya to look at what we have done, you know. So
Yes.
the critics came and debated on this garden city thing. So much so, we've also changed in the structure plan from garden to green, because I think that's our asset. But garden city has its own challenges, you know, because the gardens are very formal, they're quite well spread, whereas currently we want people to be everywhere in the city. We want smaller parks, we want more interaction. So I guess this is where the evolution, but I agree with Kun Lim, the plan is there, and at least this town is built based on a very strong master plan, and that's important.
Yes. Thank you very much, Puan. Yeah, there are a few questions here. I think we start to look at the public questions, and also there's one on the FB that I found. I think they are questioning about, okay, I've got one here from, I don't know whether it's a Cik or two, but Sabariyah Muhammad. Have we not been able to understand the activities and travel behavior of Putrajaya residents and visitors, so much so that public transportation use is not favored, or probably due to poor provision of services not catering for demand needs? I think this is about public transportation just now, what Tan Sri was showing. And also there's another one here about, can we say that Putrajaya is designed for private car use, as many complaints of difficulty for intra-movements? So how can we address this? Can I get views from, I think I go back to Datuk Sri Isaac. Unmute your microphone, please.
All right. Thank you. I think that is a very pertinent question, because when the Putrajaya was designed, it was designed with a public transport system in mind. There was a 70-30 ratio, 70% public transport, 30% private transport, with park and ride centers in the periphery of the cities. But what has happened is the public transport system was not implemented vis-a-vis the rail system. I think Tan Sri did mention about the rail. You know, there was a rail system that was supposed to have been implemented together with the planning that was done. But the park and ride centers were there, but the rail system didn't take off. So finally, it just ended up with, you know, a bus and a taxi system. And the parking that was provided for was based on the 70-30 ratio. So the main issue is the public transport plan was not implemented. The rail was not implemented. So probably this is something they really need to quickly look at it, because the tunnels for the rail is all there already. What needs to be done is just to get the rail infrastructure and to get the coaches in. Under the boulevard, you got, you know, the rail tunnel is already there.
Okay. So if I go to Cik Joe, because he's the man that brings people into cities to have festivals. So how how is your feelings about Putrajaya if you want to create the V that I was talking about, vibrancy, you know? Because there was one question here by architect Dr. Tan Lokman here talking vibrant cities integrate the beautiful planned environment with a community to live in and businesses to support it. So I'd like to ask you that before I ask Kun Lim about whether it was there or not. Joe.
Thank you. I did a festival there. It was very hard because I find Putrajaya extremely beautiful, but the scale, there's no human feeling to it. It has a wonderful spine, but no heart. I couldn't find the heart of Putrajaya. I was looking at where would be the center of Putrajaya. And you know, the people that live in Putrajaya, it's very homogeneous. It's almost entirely government servants, predominantly Malay. So businesses other than Malay profile businesses would be very hard to grow. So then you'd become a one-track city. So you really want to be a little bit more inclusive if you want to open up. And I think Dato' said something about the people there maybe are not so receptive about opening up or changing. I think for Putrajaya to grow, it's beautifully planned. Take it to the next level, you know? Look at all the weaknesses. There are weaknesses, but it was beautifully planned. But just look at the heart. Where would you place the heart? You've got the spine, find a heart of a city. And people need to walk in cities. All the biggest, most fascinating cities are walkable cities. Even in Penang now, they're changing to make living accommodations in the city center to bring back people in the city. So I think Tan Sri touched it there. Maybe one of the ideas is to bring back people to live in these empty buildings that are there in Putrajaya. So that they just walk to work and have little centers, little precincts.
Joe, you said you did the festival there. In your opinion, where is the heart? Is it the center of where it is, or is it the central, or somewhere down south or down north, or where?
There isn't a heart. They say IOI Mall, but there isn't a city heart where you feel where people would congregate, spend time, have little shops. There's always a city center everywhere around the world, or a little bit of a heart, or smaller areas. There's Bangsa. So how do people in Putrajaya feel an ownership of Putrajaya when they don't feel the space? There's no definition to the thing. There's no mana of the land doesn't come out at all. You don't feel for the land. It's a beautiful building.
Yeah, but
can I intervene?
Yeah, that's it. Sure.
I think for us to do a surgery to allow this to happen, I think you have to look at the Central Boulevard again.
Yes.
And to me, you know, it is only natural to have the heart where the Palace of Justice is, right? That's where a lot of people congregate. But they congregate because they go to court, because a lot of things happening in court. And there's also the beautiful mosque there, you know.
Correct.
That's quite a good center for us to do any kind of surgery to imbue some kind of vibrancy. Getting back to what Dato' Sri Isaac was mentioning about transportation, in our original plan, I said to you before, there is a plan for a tram, right? Tramways is supposed to serve all the core areas. So you're going to have a heart, but you don't have an ease of transportation. It's also very difficult. By having the tramways at the boulevard level, right, it will definitely revitalize the heart that you're going to put in the Palace of Justice. And there are supposed to be 5 stations within Putrajaya that connects the rail, you know. So the infrastructure and the planning is all there. It just, I don't know, it's just not being done, you know. Maybe it takes time to do, I'm not sure. Hopefully it will happen.
Yeah, we did some twerking to some of the programs there, maybe, Tan Sri, right? So I think because Puan Nurhaliza was touched about the plan that he revisited through your good office to actually come up with this sustainability plan. I think if that is going to be the start of that implementation, probably as what Tan Sri is saying, the tram, and Dato' Sri Isaac about the 70-30, we look at that 70-30. And Kun Lim, there's one question for you. What would you do if this were to be given back to you to redo this the portion in Putrajaya? What the specific question is this? Would you do it any differently or improve anything today? That was the question given by Rusli Nordin.
You mean at the existing condition? How can I refer what happened now?
Yeah, no, yeah. Would you do it any differently or improve anything today? So, which?
I would do it differently. In fact, in our initial proposal, the core island is supposed to be a compact city, very compact. All the buildings will be linked to each other. Ground floor should be all veranda, like Tan Sri said, all connect to each other. And all the ground floors will be commercial activities, cafe, art area, and so on. Government offices will be on upper floors. That's what we have in mind. So this in our initial design, I would say that I call it stage 2 design, done during the consortium stage. And as I mentioned earlier, Malaysia is a tropical country. It's very hot. You cannot have such a big wide space everywhere. You need to have a lot of compact area so people can walk comfortably from one area to another. So the spines is supposed to be the heart of Putrajaya. Having said that, I believe we still can do something about it. Of course, you need to have a leadership from the Putrajaya itself. We still can do something quite drastic, like what Tan Sri said. We still can do something on all the building on the ground floor. And then in between buildings, they can be interconnected together. And in the certain empty parcel, we can think of different kind of building usage. It should be almost like 24 hours city. Yeah. I believe, as I said, the skeleton is good. The foundation is good. We can fine tune it. You look at Washington, D.C., it takes them many years, 200 years to fine tune it. Keep to do some minor adjustment here and there. So we still can do it. I believe we still can do it.
So we need more nourishment. So I think these are some of the nourishment that need to, they call it, look back at the previous idea and also integrate it with the new idea. Here,
and then maybe I can add something about the Putrajaya monorail.
Okay.
And I was a consultant to KL monorail. I work on the Putrajaya monorail.
Okay.
20 years ago, in fact, I walked through all tunnel, underground tunnel a few times. And then I'm not sure when we are going to finish it. Construction started. Maybe Isaac can answer it. Construction, I think, started 20 years ago. The monorail bridge from Western Transport Terminal to Precinct 4.
Yes.
It's almost there. And I believe all the underground tracks from Precinct 4 to Precinct 1 is also almost there. So I'm not sure whether we can complete the Putrajaya monorail since we already started. Yeah.
Maybe to answer your question, that currently the MRT2 line from Putrajaya to Sungai Buloh is under construction, and the lines, the station is under construction there. But I think what you're saying and Tan Sri was saying also is the intra within the Putrajaya itself needs to have more of this public transportation, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I got one question here, which I think Puan Noliza maybe can answer this, but this is actually more towards the future. I think we need to now move how to look beyond 25 years. We've already done the 25 years, already, the Silver Jubilee. Now we look at 25 years, and to make this city, as what most of you all have said, good. The backbone is good. Now we need to build on it and fill it up with nourishment. Okay, this is a quite long question, but it's actually very pertinent, because if it needs to be a good city, it has to grow from childhood, from 8 years to 80 years old. So this comes from Anadia Omar. Childhood stunting is the highest in Putrajaya from the findings of a preliminary survey by the MOH and UNICEF in 2016. This incident makes us rethink why children aged 12 to 23 months in Putrajaya, the administrative capital in particular, a city well known for its widely accessible parks and public amenities for work, health and recreation, yet to have the highest child stunting in the country. The impairment has a negative impact on the long-term national economic productivity, the irony of being children living in the nation's administrative capital. As there are many factors contributing to child stunting, however, a city may play a big role in dismantling these physical and social barriers, and how we can work towards a caregiving city, as the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Can I get Puan Nurliza to answer this question because she did the relook at this Putrajaya, Puan Nurliza?
Yeah, thank you to this question from Nadia. I'm not so sure about. I didn't really come across this data on the stunting, particularly in Putrajaya. I'm not sure is why these numbers are so high in Putrajaya. Is it because the sampling was done more here, or was the sampling really throughout the entire country? So that's something that we need to validate. Okay. However, taking forward, definitely the role of cities and how children and people grow in the city is very important. And I think in the early days when we started to draw these plans, of course, Tan Sri and Kulim and Datuk Sri might have maybe a different views. But I thought at that time, probably we were not talking so much about the diverse communities, you know. We were talking more in terms of numbers as of public government servants versus other people that's going to live here. I'm not sure whether the thinking about 8 to 80 was there in the early days, as much as it's becoming more important today. In fact, there were a lot of discussion in the early days as to what if, if it's just a government residents living there, and once they retire, will they continue to live there or they move out, and what will happen? So we don't really have communities that actually feel that Putrajaya is their home, but rather it's a transient place for them because they come, they live there because they work there. And then when they retire, they go balik kampung somewhere else, But over time, what we see, there are certain numbers that have decided to make it their home, including Datuk Sri Isaac. And, but there are many people, government, who decided that, they bought homes there, they want to make the place their home. Or even if it's not in Putrajaya, it would be very surrounding Putrajaya, Merab, Dengkel, Cyberjaya. They live very close to Putrajaya, and I think that's a good sign where now after 25 years we are seeing Putrajaya developing communities, and then we are having people who are starting to have urban farms. And people who are even into kelulut, in the communities in Putrajaya. I think what we need to realize is Putrajaya is almost 10,000 acres of land. It's a huge, it's not one township, And over time, we need to realize that we need to have, it has to have its core, it needs to have sub-cores, because the communities are growing, and now you can't segregate the communities as we thought we could do in the past, where we have some government homes and then we have homes which are open up for public to buy. But now you already having this almost, people who are living there from young to old, and people wants to live and make their choice of living in different precincts based on maybe affordability or what the area offers. So the change over 25 years, I think is very important for us to realize that we actually have not just one huge city, but we are having now small suburbs in one city. And because of that, probably, the need to redefine the core area, because in the old days, the core area was meant for the government. And then we have the sub-commercial centers, which is in 7 and 8, Alamanda area. There were four sub-commercial areas, But the sub-commercial areas did not come up as fast as they should be. So I think that was when people started to go into IOI, go to Cyberjaya, thinking that there were no sub-commercial centers in Putrajaya. So timing is also important. I think we need to have, I think if we talk about quality of life in Putrajaya, nobody has that kind of quality of life compared to other townships. You've got good schools, you've got good parks, you've got good facilities, So stunting is normally, is the nourishment or the mother's health itself or the environment itself. And I'm not sure whether that's something that is comparative to the issue.
I think it's just
studying further.
It is validation, as what you said, but
It
it's
is
good point.
validation.
It needs to be pointed out, and I think because everybody, not just in Malaysia, but in the world, is looking at us. Putrajaya is the brand. So later we go on to the brand, but before that, I would like to welcome Dato' Maimunah Sharif, the Executive Director of UN Habitat, to the forum. Welcome, Dato' Maimunah. So we are still talking about Putrajaya. Okay, I think we know that there's a good plan. We know that Putrajaya Perbadanan also has got there's this question that they got a lots of programs. So they got Floria, they got Pyro Show, they got light and event show towards the end of the year. Is there any way, Joe, that can you have a perpetual festival in a city in order to make it sustainable, or what is there to make it more sustainably events to make it more vibrant? I think because a lot of this question is about vibrancy of the city rather than the vitality is there, the value is there because the real estate is growing up. So, Joe, can you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, I don't agree about having festivals as in buka kedai tutup kedai. Like you have Burning Man that becomes 60,000, 80,000 people, and then the rest of the year is totally empty. So I think you should build on what is already there. I like what Kun Lim said. Don't give up on it. It's really beautifully planned. And also, I don't quite agree about. Okay, I'm going to be very controversial here. If you do, say, for instance, the Hot Air Balloon Festival, right? You spend a lot of money. So in 5, 10 years and 15 million, have we produced any hot air balloon champions? What does it do for the local artists or local artisans or local shops? I don't think it does a lot except for the people who sell food. So I think if you're going to invest in bringing culture, you have to invest in the infrastructure there, right? So that people will go and gravitate there, not just once a year, but throughout the whole year. So the festival is just as a highlight or icing on the cake, but not the thing. You should actually build the layers to the festival. There must be something there other than just bring a festival and then people will come in, 10,000 people come in. That's once a year. You want people to come all the time.
So what you're trying to say is you must have the big, the small, the medium, all in one.
Yes, many layers to it. Yeah, many layers to it.
Remco Hall said they've got the S, the M, the L, the XL also. So it's all in together.
That works better.
Yeah, that's what better. Okay. Okay. I think there's this comments that we have to make known is Putrajaya, ever since it started, even now, and it's actually become a brand. But whether we realize it or not, Dubai started to follow. Kazakhstan have their own cities. After they look at us. So what I would like to draw to attention, especially Tan Sri, who has traveled the world under the flagship of International Union of Architects. I would like to see how can we brand Putrajaya as a brand laureate for Malaysia. We always say brand like, for instance, LV or what, but this is actually a township. So how actually can you brand it as a brand laureate of Malaysia overseas? Tan Sri.
When we planned Putrajaya at the inception, it was very clear that we wanted Putrajaya to be an icon, an international icon. And having said that, I think the structure in terms of its physical planning and because of the natural topography that we have and also the lake that we have, that in itself has become a brand that is recognized worldwide. And we have received a lot of praises and admiration as far as the physical and environmental planning that we have done. And now to enhance it further for the brand itself, we have now to imbue things on sustainability, the sustainability goals, which is now being done, I believe, by the corporation. And in the end, there's also an attempt to have what is called zero carbon footprint for the whole of Putrajaya. So that in itself, I think it is ahead of its time at this point in time for most other cities that is planning to develop a similar township. I think we are there already as far as the branding is concerned. But internally, amongst ourselves, we must do a bit more surgery to do a lot of things that benefit the people, in the inhabitants, and also will attract others to come. Like Nolitha just mentioned earlier, the tourists come here and they don't do anything else, just take pictures, you know. They don't stay because there's nowhere else to go, and there's nothing to hold them down. And yet, at the outset, we were told that it must be a tourist attraction. It is a tourist attraction, but they don't stay. Right? What is wrong with that? Because there's nothing to keep them to stay on. So I believe that, I think, to reflect what Khun Lim just mentioned, we have got a good structure already. The framework is already there. We just have to put in the content, right? And I think it is not too late. I think there's still a lot of space that can be developed, and we just have to put the content, including the intangible ones, like, you know, the community engagement, the societal what we call intervention and participation. All these are the softwares that we can put into that hardware that's already been developed.
Okay. Dato' Sri, taking along from Tan Sri's comments just now, from the consultant side, when this was actually a blend LORAC, you also travel overseas during those times when people from overseas are coming to look at what you all are doing on the ground. So how you see that it's coming along, or it has not reached to its fruition to what it is supposed to be, or what?
Okay, I think Putrajaya is actually a model city. It's well planned, world class in terms of overall planning, urban design, architecture, and maybe even environmental management. I think even, professors from Harvard have come here and said, we have done an excellent job in terms of building a model city. And another thing we need to take note also, Putrajaya has also come to symbolize the Malaysian brand, because it is a city built by Malaysians, designed by Malaysians, and all the construction, the contractors were all Malaysians. So I think as a brand, I think it is a Malaysian brand, which is internationally recognized. I think what is important now is, as Joe Sidek mentioned, we need to build the soul. But when we did the plan for Putrajaya, there is 4 million square feet of commercial space that is available, which is not built yet. So this is something we really need to look at. And probably we might have to go back to the early stage where we had the competition. We had the private consultants together with the Town and Country Planning Department and JKR, we came out with concepts and plans. Maybe Perbadanan Putrajaya might have to start a competition again, how to bring vibrancy into Putrajaya and have a national competition, so that we'll get some good ideas from various consultants and experts. And maybe that should pave the way for the next 25 years.
So Dato' Sri is looking at more internal competitions, which I think is very good. So I think that will augurs well for more creative and also better solutions, I suppose. So, Khun Lim, how do you respond to that? Is that how it's been done in US, especially in terms of getting this 10,000 acres of towns to make it livable, one thing, and to make it not just profitable, but I think it has to be more good for business to come in and invest their money.
Yeah, first I agree with the Dato' Sri Isaac's suggestion that we should have a competition. We should have a competition to reimagine Putrajaya. Everything is there, how to make it more lively. I think we should do that. And yeah, we should have a so-called reimagined Putrajaya. And I live in Seattle. Seattle is a very interesting city. Seattle, they have a population of 700,000. They have a downtown, but they have a lot of sub-downtown. They divide Seattle into 27 neighborhoods. So example, you work for Emerson.com in downtown Seattle. When you come back to where I stay in the University District next to the University of Washington. I have my urban village. Once I'm home, I can walk everywhere. I don't have to use my car at all. So every neighborhood have their so-called vibrancy. Downtown is very vibrant. In the suburb, every town have their own so-called urban village. I think Putrajaya will to do something like that to create more vibrancy. Of course, you have to start out with the spine. The spine, it is the heart of Putrajaya. And as I say, it's not too late. You look at, I like to use Washington, D.C. as an example. Throughout the history of Washington in D.C., 200 plus years, the first time I think George Washington engaged a French-born architect, Longfond, something to do master plan. Later, they engaged another person to improve on it, to redesign certain area. And then they have been doing this many, many times. So there's not an issue. We should be able to reimagine, to readjust, to readapt to the current situation. So I think we should be no problem. I think we can do it.
So,
and I'm sure if a PAM organizes a so-called competition in Malaysia, you can get a lot of PAM or the Malaysian Institute entrepreneurs organize competitions. You can get a lot of good ideas, especially now, because a lot of architects are not very busy. You can get a lot of good ideas. You should do it now.
Yeah.
Reimagine Putrajaya.
So maybe a joint PAM MIP to do design competition. And
even a lot of architects from Seattle, they have no jobs. They probably want to participate as well. A lot of our jobs now.
So, okay, that's a very good point, especially when I heard you say that, coming on from Joe's point of heart. Now you're saying that the 4.2 kilometers that you designed as the boulevard there is the heart. So we have the spine. The heart is actually the spine. So I think this is where we need to reimagine. So we can reimagine the even what Condoleezza did. 2025 sustainability plan of Putrajaya to reimagine how it could be enhanced from whatever was built 25 years ago. So there's this one question here about that. I've got to look. I'm looking at 3 screens here. Okay, I'm looking at the phone. I'm looking at the 2. Okay, I think because it's now already 25 years, so we are going to the next 25 years. Dato' Mamina's point is this: even though the objective is for administrative center, but the inclusivity, work, live, and play must be incorporated. So, can I get some feedback here from? First of all, I think I go to Tan Sri Esa. So, how you do that?
I think the comment is correct. I'm just looking at the moment, right, within Putrajaya itself, there's no actually visible industrial, except it is located in Cyberjaya. And we're talking about the future, artificial intelligence, big data, and all kinds of digitalization as an industry. I think this is something which is befitting for Putrajaya. That will encourage other private sectors to come in, right, to establish head office or whatever, and then get them connected to Cyberjaya to establish any kind of manufacturing, high technology. That will bring back some vibrancy into instead of just pure administrative governmental precincts that we have. All governmental precincts worldwide is a dead city, right? You can bet on that. Whether it is Canberra, Brasilia, it's the same. We do not want Putrajaya to be that model. We have to be inclusive and get other aspects apart from just governmental administrative center. There are other aspects that has to be brought in, And this is where we're talking about competition, and I think that's the terms of reference for the competition, if you want to talk about that. How to bring in future industries into Putrajaya, leveraging on what has been developed in Cyberjaya, which is just next door, right?
Right.
And don't forget, there is next to it, I think east of it, there is the Malay Reserve. Yeah? That Malay Reserve is huge, and it is not, they have to be included too. But their inclusion is not just high tech. Nowadays, you can have agricultural business, agro business, which is high tech, which they can also participate. So that Putrajaya as a conurbation, which covers the whole area of Cyberjaya and also the Malay Reserve area, few thousand hectares of them, right, become one big conurbation for the future. Right? So this is what we should look at. And this is something which is a good idea for a competition to be launched as soon as possible.
Yep. Dato Sri,
Yes.
now you have actually migrated from Putrajaya to now to the before it was East Coast, then you go to Northern Corridor. So what lessons from those two can you bring about, having had a good base in Putrajaya that can be, how shall I say, rejuvenated back to Putrajaya or returned back to Putrajaya where you actually started? Dato Sri?
Okay, I think the lessons to be learned, especially from the northern region. Actually, the northern region is actually a technology hub. The ecosystem, the E&E, medical devices are very strong there. So that is something that Putrajaya can look at in terms of diversification. We are not talking about heavy industries coming to Putrajaya, but it's more technology-driven economic activities that could complement government functions. Maybe that is something we can look at. The other one is actually education. For the moment, there's only one university in Putrajaya, the Heriot Ward University. Maybe that is something we can look at. The third one is actually medical and health facilities, medical and health tourism. That is another area that we could look at to complement the government function that is here in Putrajaya. So it'll be a good idea to get these ideas from the private sector, a joint competition organized by Perbadanan Putrajaya, Putrajaya Holdings, Malaysian Institute of Planners, and maybe even the Malaysian Institute of Architects jointly have this competition. And it can be done very fast because there is spare capacity in the consultancy area now because, they're not as busy as they used to be. So I think this is a good time to have the best of the brains, giving ideas to us. And I'm sure the architects, the engineers, the planners will be very happy to, add to this vibrancy we are looking for.
Okay, before I have Puan Nurhaliza to answer, this may be the backbone that she could answer it because the 2025 plan maybe have got some rooms inside there and whether it's answered because this one question, I think in 2015, under the Paris Accord, we are supposed to be creating something like net zero carbon development. And I think Malaysia signed up to it. So this question comes from Dr. Tan Lokman from PEM. With the advent of technology and blockchain and big data and the anticipated reduction to person government administration function, is there a plan for the future role of administrative centers and cities such as Putrajaya, due to COVID, so we have less people interact on using digital. What are the future proofing plans looking towards 2030 and 2050? Puan Nurhaliza, can you enlighten us on that in your plan that you have already looked before?
I think Putrajaya probably also, besides it has a good, it has a master plan in place, it has a regulatory plan in place, it also has a smart, sustainable, low carbon blueprint, So that was also embedded in the structure plan. So I think in terms of policy, Putrajaya is very committed to sustainability. I mean, it has the biggest, in terms of city scale, 40% of its area is green and blue. No city in Malaysia could ever afford to have such huge area to greenery environment, and which is today, if you visit it, I hope, if you go to wetlands, the amount of biodiversity that we have created in Putrajaya is actually amazing, and no new city could achieve this in such a short time, 25 years. You've got real habitat living now in Putrajaya. So definitely in terms of green environment, Putrajaya has achieved a lot, and it has always been set very high standards in terms of environment. So much so, I think that's why it became a little bit clinical, in a sense that, like what Datuk Sri Isaac started mentioning in the beginning, we didn't allow a lot of things to be done in the waterways. We didn't allow the active part, we didn't allow boating, we didn't allow. In fact, fishing is only allowed in certain parts of the lake. Only later there was a master plan for the water areas, and then there were guidelines as to what can be done, what cannot be done. The reimagining it would be good, but we also have some challenges, like we set some levels for the water. So not everything could be undone without a cost. So I think these are things that it will be interesting to see what ideas come. But definitely with technology, we could do a lot more, and without trying to physically destroy what we have. I think Putrajaya has a lot of assets that no other even country has. We've been visited by a lot of governments, India, even the African country, Indonesia, everyone wants to build their own government capital city. Everyone came to visit Putrajaya. But I think what we've done, not many can afford to do the way we've done it, with very high environmental standards. So yes, in that response, vibrancy has been badly affected, because we've got issue with security, privacy, and in that sense, what Kun Lim was saying, the idea of people walking at the ground floor did not happen, because people were very afraid on how to manage security for the government buildings. So there were so many overlapping issues. But now, if we have technology, we can actually overcome that very easily. So things can change, and I think 2020 is the best year to change it, to start looking at these changes. I totally agree that we need to rethink, reimagine. And Putrajaya is, what needs to happen is we need more life here, livability. I think for people who live in Putrajaya, if you ask them, they all are having a great time. It's a livable city for them. It's good quality of life, because they've got everything there, good schools, good parks, but we are not living there, and we want more vibrancy there from our angle. And I think we cannot compromise that the quality of life some of the people who are already enjoying it. But I think we want this to be also enjoyed by other people visiting the place, or adding more people in the core areas to live in. So yes, it'd be nice to see what ideas can come into Putrajaya. The policies are there. The 2025 plan has some policies to enable this work immediately, actually. So there's no conflict to the policies that we have. And then we have the blueprint on smart, low carbon. So I think the discussion so far and the comments that came on the chat room, it's very doable, actually.
So maybe that's where I think the role of Urbanis here at the center of excellence for this think tank and cross fertilization, where SDG 17 is talking about collaboration, right? I think as what Tan Sri was talking about collaboration between Cyberjaya, Putrajaya, then talking with Malay Reserve or something. but we have to end in about 10 or 15 minutes. So I have to ask this question, which is very sensitive, because as we bring in more commercialization into Putrajaya, there's this question about density, there's this question about height, there's this question about, you know, having to, how should I say, done with the urban design that was done 25 years ago of the, you know, the roof profiling, the vistas, the view. So this one question is how, you know, Kun Lim, you know, coming from your first lines, you know, can we do this without having to go, you know, point blocks, destroying the very nature that we created Putrajaya, and you created that, you know, there's a height limit at the spine area, there's these other places. So how would you tend to work from there? You're unmute. Can you please unmute?
Yes. Yeah, as I mentioned, the foundation, the structure, basic structure, infrastructure in Putrajaya is very good. I think you can do a lot of things. You don't have to be like change everything. You can do a lot of things with certain creativity and imagination, and I believe we can do it. Just like the spine area. Of course, one of the big issue Noriza mentioned was a security issue. Security, like in the government ministry, how can we have commercial facilities or mama store in the ground floor and so on? But like some of you mentioned, with the technology, I think this can be solved. If we can open up so-called the ground floor, and then you can connect more building from one to another. Now I'm talking about focus on the spine. And then there are certain empty land, maybe we could think about different kind of land use, 24 hours living, mixed commercial, and so on. And then even within the boulevard itself, certain area might be too wide. You can add in certain things. Just like the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Many years ago, they had more hard surface in the National Mall. Now it become more landscape and so on. So there are many things you can do.
Okay.
And I believe you have a so-called design competitions amongst the professional in Malaysia.
Correct.
They can come up with incredible ideas because Malaysians are creative. Malaysians are very creative. They can come up with incredible ideas.
Okay.
And this is just talk about the spine, and of course, after which we can look into other area, neighborhood, and so on.
Okay. Thank you, Kun Lim. We are about to finish, but before we finish, I would like to ask each and every one of the panelists here an answer in 5 words, especially in conjunction with our 63rd celebrations of the Malaysian independence. How would you want Putrajaya to be? You know, because it's 25 years, and what we like to see 25 years later. So I think maybe in 5 words or 5 short, one short sentence. If I can ask Dato' Isaac, what would you coin so that because this is being recorded, and I think urbanists can take all this, even though we do not answer most, but I grouped some of the questions under similar heading. This can be the forerunner for this up and coming. I think Urbanist is doing this Malaysian Urban Forum, and I think this is very crucial that we have to bring this to the forefront again, where Perbadanan will be also participating in the Malaysian Urban Forum. So, Dato' Sri, how would you see in the future for 25 years in a short sentence?
You said 5 words.
5 words, yeah. Okay, can you?
Yeah, Putrajaya encapsulates the Malaysian spirit.
That's good. Joe.
I don't know. I think Malaysia boleh. I think we can do it. As Kun Lim said, Canberra is no better. Brazil is no better. Let's just do it.
Okay. Tan Sri Esa.
I believe that for the future, Putrajaya has to be, first of all, must be attractive, must be people-friendly, environmentally sustainable, and it must embody the future digital technologies. Right? So that's what the whole sustainability of Putrajaya is about.
Okay. Kun Lim? Please unmute. Please unmute. I cannot hear you.
If I had to use a few individual words to mention, I will use a few words. I would say like first, like diversity, in the broad sense, diversity, inclusive, progressive, vibrant, and confidence. Right? Can use it like in the individual. So I would say.
Okay, and Puan Nurhaliza, as the host for this afternoon's event, what would you say in 5 words?
Also, the words are taken up. So, I mean, I agree with a lot of the words there. I just want to add that excellence probably is something that still needs to happen, because when we started for the professionals, we learned a lot. It was supposed to set new standards for the country. So I think we need to build on creating excellence for people to continue to learn from us. The rest, I totally agree. You know, I think it should be inclusive, it should be sustainable, but most importantly, it must be people friendly. You know, must be for the people, so that it could be a city with soul.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you again. Can I have Dr. Azmizam and also forgot his name to be on so that we can have a group photo? So we have come to the end of the session, and before we end, please accept our sincere apologies should there be any shortcomings. However, we hope that you have gained as much the paper, the presenter's thoughts, and also the presentation that we did, and also from the question and answer session on what 25 years later Putrajaya what has become. And thank you for the participation. You know, we have loads of questions. Don't worry, those questions will not be forgotten. This will be carried through. Urbanist is keeping it to actually put it through to the MUF, which is coming in September, right, Puan Nurhaliza, right? So there will be what I call maybe a dialogue that we can actually do. So thank you for the participation and being an awesome participants too. As the saying always go, you know, Doctor, can we take photo together before I say the last two sentences?
Yeah, Shafiq can do.
Okay, get ready. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Okay, so we are still in the pandemic until 31st December. Okay, so we have to say this: be safe, stay safe, think safety, and kita jaga kita. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, panelis, Dato' Sri Isaac, Josie Day, Puan Nurhaliza, Dr. Azmizam, Shafiq, and also Kun Lim, all the way from Seattle. So thank you all. Have a nice evening and have a nice Merdeka Day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Join us for Malaysia Urban Forum,
Yes.
28 to 30th September.
Yeah, 25th to 28th.
28 to 30th September.
28 to 30th September. Mark your date. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.